we're going to get started.
All right.
So, welcome everybody, and everybody on Zoom. So glad you decided to join us today. We're going to start. We're going to have a little fun. You want to have a little fun?
Sure, absolutely.
Get to the meat and potatoes and stuff. So,
yeah, let's play.
when I was looking into all this, I found some funny stuff online, and I just wanted to share this to you. So, I found a quick story about a wife who came to her husband during breakfast and said, "Hey babe, last night there were 2 pieces of cake in the pantry when I went to bed, and this morning there's only 1 left. How can you explain that?" And he said, "Well, I guess it was so dark I didn't see the other piece."
There you go. You're lucky there's 1 left.
That was one of my favorites. So
That's cute.
I got another one. What do you call a fake noodle? Say it.
An impasta.
Impasta. Yeah, gotta have a food joke.
Did you hear that before? Did you
Yes. No, gosh, I'm not that smart.
And the last one, I saw someone post, it said, "My fitness goal is to get down to what I told the DMV I actually did." So, hey, we got a new year. A lot of people got these goals, so I thought that was a funny one. So a little bit of humor to get us started off tonight. I am going to get a clean board for us to use. And as you saw on the board, we are talking about body fueling for an awesome life. And next to getting adjusted, I think that body fueling is number 2 in the things that we really need to study and really need to master for long-term health. Hey, could we get the music off in there when you get a chance? Thank you. I just want to make sure everyone online can hear it.
Yeah.
So I just want to explain. So if you got your handouts, you can look at the first image on there. And this really explains, so what we do here, of course, is deal with the nerve system, and that has to do with the brain, spinal cord, all the nerves going out. And we actually know that, so we have our brain here. During development, after fertilization, early in fetal development, actually have something that's called a neural crest. And what forms from that is 2 things. Okay, number 1, we have our brain and we have our spinal cord. Okay, and the second thing that develops from that neural crest is the enteric nervous system. Okay, so we have the nerve system here, and then we have the enteric nervous system, which is the stomach, the intestines, our entire digestive system, along with all of the immune components along with that. So first we have our stomach here, and then from there we have the rest of our digestive system. And because they actually start forming around the same time, they have a special link on how they actually communicate to one another. And that link is by way of the vagus nerve. So has anyone ever heard of the vagus nerve? So
It's spelled differently.
So it's actually we have pairs of nerves in our brain. We have 12 of them, and this is number 10. Okay, doesn't matter about the number, but they call this the wandering nerve, the cranial nerve, because it actually makes all these connections as it goes down the body, and it makes connections to multiple points in our digestive system. And it's actually, there's a lot of communication from the brain to the digestive system, the ENS, and there's a lot of communication by way of the vagus nerve up to the brain through the spinal cord. Okay, so it's very, very important that we understand this connection, because in order to have great body fueling, we have to, number 1, take care of our nerve system, and then all the things we're talking about from here on out is going to be dealing with this ENS, because we know that there's a ton of receptors in our digestive system that basically are going to be benefited by what we eat, or they're going to be negatively affected. Okay, so makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next thing I want to get into, I've got a lot of specific things here. So usually I don't use a whole lot of notes, but I want to make sure I get this all right. So after this, so basically the ENS, I wanted to go into a little bit more. It's like the brain of the gut. So we have neurotransmitters that are made in the brain, okay? And we also have neurotransmitters that are made in the ENS, in our digestive system. These are things you're familiar with. So we have serotonin, okay, we've got dopamine, which is makes us feel good. Serotonin makes us sleep well if we're talking about it in the brain. In the digestive system, this helps with motility and actually moving the food along. We also have norepinephrine, okay, and we have nitrous oxide. And that helps relax the digestive system. So very important things that are affected by what we eat. And we also have what's called neuropeptides. And there's 24 of them in the enteric nervous system. And they are actually like proteins that help to digest the food, help to ensure that the digestive system is working at 100%. And these neuropeptides and neurotransmitters, they are naturally good for us, okay? So like the neuropeptides, for example, they have natural opiates. So we hear about taking opiates for pain. This actually is produced by our digestive system and can help us fight off pain, feel more relaxed. And then also, you probably heard of a class of drugs called benzos. Benzos are for like antidepressants, but these are made naturally in our bodies. So why not, let's look into some of the things, some of the habits that can actually lead to our bodies making these naturally. Because we know that all drugs, they do have side effects. Mm-hmm. So the more benzos we take, it can actually make us constipated, because too much of a good thing can actually be bad for us. So that serotonin actually gets blocked. So we want to decrease as much as we can for any prescriptions that we're taking. And that, along with the adjustments, we've seen a lot of people have good results with being able to reduce their drugs. Next thing I want to go into, let me just get rid of all this, is let's just start from the beginning. And we're going to talk about morning routine. Okay, so the American, we've got the standard American diet, right? Sad.
Yeah.
It is kind of sad. Because what do we wake up, we go to the bathroom, we have some coffee, we might drink a half a glass of water, right? We're gonna have a donut and maybe some cereal as we're going out the door, okay? But what I'm gonna recommend to you is so simple, but it just takes a little bit of thinking. So number one, all right, when we wake up, we're not gonna drink any water. We're not gonna go to the bathroom right away, okay? We're going to drink water if we can help it, okay? This is gonna be key. And why do I recommend that? Because it starts the technical name is the gastroenteric reflex. So basically gets you started in the morning. And with the water, okay, we're going to be adding lemon. All right, if you don't have lemon, you can use lime. And why are we adding lemon? When we drink it, it becomes basic in our bodies. Okay, it helps to balance our pH, because a lot of us are drinking too much acidic foods, too much acidic drinks like coffee. Okay, so we always need to help our digestive system as much as possible. And then after we drink that, we want to wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes ideally before we have anything else to drink or eat. Okay, that's because it allows that beneficial process of getting the lemon water in before we have any foods that might be acidic or might be taxing the digestive system.
How much time between the water, lemon, and you eat?
15 to 20
15
minutes.
minutes.
How about water, lemon, and using the bathroom?
Yeah, the bathroom.
Yeah,
is
so
still there too.
yeah, as soon as you drink that water,
Okay.
you can get in that. But it just helps to
15,
jump.
20 minutes after I wake up. I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
And that this can help you become more regular. So a lot of people have problems with constipation, and that can be stemming.
Does it matter the temperature of the water?
No, we can have cold water, we can have lukewarm water. We just want to make sure we have that fresh squeezed lemon or lime juice in there.
Yeah.
And it's very easy, but before we do some juicing, which we're going to be doing some juicing later for everyone that's here live, juicing is the next thing that, of course, I'm going to recommend for a daily habit. If we could do at least 3 days of juicing a week, that's going to help supercharge vitamins, minerals that our bodies don't necessarily digest as easy if we try to eat the foods whole. Okay, so juicing is fantastic because it can be great for people who are sick. Okay, it allows us to absorb very easily as opposed to chewing.
So that it doesn't get absorbed quicker than in the body?
It gets absorbed quicker.
Quicker,
Yeah.
okay.
So a lot of people who have cancer,
Mhm.
it's recommended for that. And of course, everything I'm talking about tonight, this isn't necessarily medical advice. I want you to talk to your doctor if you have any specific questions about anything,
Yep.
anybody online. We're just having a roundtable discussion. But juicing, fantastic. And we'll show you an easy recipe that we can do later on. The next thing I want to move into is talking about some foods that a lot of people need to incorporate into their diets that they might not be getting with that standard American diet, okay? And it all revolves around getting enzyme-rich foods. So an enzyme is simply something that helps a digestive process take place, okay? And these enzymes are needed for a lot of different foods that we eat. And it actually helps with the accumulation, assimilation of that food into each and every cell that it's destined for.
Okay.
There's 3 types of enzymes, okay? So we've got digestive, talking a lot about that tonight. And we have things like proteases, so they digest protein. We've got amylases, they digest carbohydrates. And then we've got lipases, and they digest fat. And one of the things I want to make a quick note of is one of our most popular supplements that we have here is a large part an enzyme. And the way that it works, it actually breaks down inflammation, breaks down swelling in the body, and it has what's called a proteolytic enzyme. So it actually breaks down certain things that are harmful to the bodies. So it's called inflammatome. A lot of you already take this, but this is one of the things why I recommend that not only we have a good supplement if we need it, but we have the foods. We have to get it at both ends, because if we just do this, we're going to be limited on how fast we heal and how easily we stay healthy. And then the other enzyme for digestion is actually called zypan. And zypan is from Standard Process, and it's a blend of things like lipase and other enzymes that we just talked about, the digestive enzymes, the proteases. And this helps if we happen to have a fatty meal, or we have something that our body can't absorb, digest as easily. Zypan helps us out in the meantime. A lot of people, they just need this for a short amount of time, and then we need to take it on a maintenance type of basis. But I wanted to point out both of those that are super beneficial. I've taken both of them, and they work really well. The next one is called metabolic. And these are going to direct body functions and the actual use of those enzymes, okay? And the last one are the food enzymes. And these enzymes are only found when we eat the foods in raw form, okay? A lot of people have an aversion to vegetables sometimes. And the easiest thing that people do is they just cook it to death, right?
Oh, God.
Right. So we've got our cooked carrots stewing on the stove, right? It gets nice and sweet. It tastes better. But the longer we cook the foods, the more nutrients that we lose. Not only nutrients, but these enzymes are going to be lost. Okay. Then they're not going to be digested as we want. It can lead to things like constipation that we talked about, bloating, and we're just not going to be getting those nutrients like we need. We're not going to feel as healthy, energetic, and vibrant. So we want to make sure that we're not overcooking our foods. That's my overall arching point right now, because if we just eat them raw, we're going to be getting much more nutrients. So always opt for that, unless you have a condition where you know that certain foods you can't eat, like certain people with thyroid problems, hypothyroidism, you're most likely not going to want to eat raw broccoli, okay? But it's all dependent on what's going on with you. And of course you can discuss that with your doctor if you have any questions with that, or you can ask us any questions as well. And then with these enzymes, they're either going to break down or they're going to be building up. And the ones I mentioned, the supplements, they're always going to be breaking down the inflammation, and they're going to be helping us to break down those foods. The next thing going along with enzymes is fermented foods. Okay, so that's our next slide that you can see on the handout if you're following along. Lacto fermented foods are super rich in all kinds of vitamins, okay? And it's going to be rich in these enzymes. Okay, we've got the enzymes, and we've got vitamins, minerals out the wazoo. And one of the reasons why this is something I want to point out is because with our modern lives, we don't have we have access to these foods, but it's not a staple in a lot of people's diets like they used to be. Because see, someone once said that refrigerators are one of the worst inventions for our health, because we allow those foods to be kept for so long, and we're not using these old processes that are so healthy for us. Because fermentation has been around for thousands of years. It's in the Bible, it's in super old texts. Before people had refrigerators, what did they do? They either had the food right away, or they fermented it. Or if it was meat, they salted it in order to keep it fresh. So one of the things that's so healthy that we've gotten away from is just fresh milk. Fresh milk from cows and from goats. Super, super healthy. And I just want to read you from a book here. It's called The Maker's Diet. So the things I'm talking about can be found in The Maker's Diet. But looking at fermented foods. I'm just going to read you some of the benefits. So, from fresh cow milk, we're not talking about anything that's been pasteurized, because what did we just learn? Heat kills healthy vitamins, healthy nutrients. So, the pasteurization, it raises the heat in order to kill bacteria, but we kill all the good stuff too.
Mm.
And this is why it's totally different than what we typically have in our diets. Okay, it provides calcium, builds bones, right? So we don't need to add all that calcium, right? We always have that vitamin D added, calcium added, but the good stuff we don't need to add it. It also slows the development of osteoporosis that plagues so many elderly. It lowers blood pressure and cholesterol. It attacks bacterial infections, especially those causing diarrhea. It prevents cavities and chronic bronchitis, and it can actually slow the growth of some cancers, including the colon, boost mental alertness and energy. So this is all coming from the maker's diet. Then it goes on to talk about goat's milk. Okay, goat's milk has allergenic, so it's anti-allergenic. It can actually help people that has allergies because it doesn't have the same proteins that are in that pasteurized milk. Okay? Okay. So we've got just about 8 minutes, and we're gonna continue to talk about some goat's milk stuff. It doesn't suppress the immune system. We can always start it up again if we need to. Goat's milk is easier to digest, and it has more buffering capacity over antacids. So it actually works better than taking Tums, all those things we know about. It alkalizes the digestive system, so instead of being acidic, it's going to be in the opposite spectrum. So just a couple of things talking about the benefits of the fermented foods. And besides goat's milk and fresh cow's milk, we also have things like sauerkraut. Okay, so sauerkraut actually has 4 times the nutrients as unfermented cabbage.
Like what you can buy at the store?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is make it yourself, okay? Because sometimes the sauerkraut might not be actually allowed to ferment enough if it's just in a can. But of course, it's going to be better than having none at all.
Is ferment like pickling?
Yeah, so that's a type of fermentation. And so sauerkraut has the highest source of vitamin C in any food. So it's packed with the highest source of vitamin C, just to name one of the benefits of eating fermented. And then, of course, it's going to be easier to digest once these foods are fermented. It's also got probiotics. So probiotics are going to be beneficial microbes that you have in the digestive system. Things like carrots, beets, cucumbers, and onions are all super easy to ferment. One of my favorite things to actually have that's fermented is called kombucha. And it's a fermented tea. I had some for lunch. It helps ease my digestive system in times of distress. It's easy to find. You can get it at any store. You can make your own. I made my own for a couple years, and it's super easy, beneficial, it tastes great, and it also has those good enzymes that we're talking about there. Tempeh, anyone heard of tempeh?
Yes.
That's going to be fermented soy, and the great thing about tempeh is that it takes on the flavors of whatever you cook it with. So I've actually had like a tempeh burger, and you flavor it right, it tastes just like a burger. Next thing we have is kefir, which is a fermented dairy drink, and it has a lot of the same benefits as the kombucha. Natural ginger ale and KVASS, kvass. Those are all super great on fermented ideas. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize with fermented drinks is that if we compare drinking water versus, say, kombucha, you're actually going to get hydrated faster, okay, according to the research that I've seen. So you hydrate super fast, so you get to replenish your body when, say, when you're dehydrated. And if you're here in Florida, that's like every other day we have to watch out for it, right? That's why we started talking about water. And how much water should we drink a day? Does anyone know the answer?
Half your body.
Half your body weight in ounces.
Yeah.
So if you weigh 100 pounds, okay, you need 50 ounces of water bare minimum. This is just a normal day. If you're going to be out on the beach, you're going to need more. But just as a quick reminder, you can take that down. So we're going to get hydrated very well with these fermented drinks. And it's going to actually, for all the pregnant moms out there, it's going to promote lactation. So after pregnancy, it's going to facilitate that. Next thing we're going to be talking about the sugars. So we all know that sugars can be good in moderation. But does anyone want to do it in moderation? No, they taste so good. So regular sugars can be good, but the artificial ones, I'm sorry, they can be bad, but the artificial ones are even worse.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I use monk fruit sugar. I love it. It's delicious.
Monk fruit. So that's a super healthy sugar. I'm gonna write that down.
Yep.
I think it's called MUNK, right?
MONK.
MONK.
Monk fruit.
Monk fruit. All right, so we want to watch out about any artificial ones. Okay, we're talking about Splenda, aspartame, that old school one, saccharin,
Chemicals.
and so Splenda is also called sucralose. Sucralose, if it's trying to be disguised in foods, drinks. Okay, so these are the exact same thing. Okay, so we don't want to have any sucralose either. We're going to be opting for things like xylitol. That's a better option. Or stevia. So those are much better. And of course,
Monk fruit.
if we're going to be having anything other than monk fruit, we want to make sure that it's
It doesn't
natural.
affect the glycemic rate, especially if you're a diabetic.
Yeah.
It doesn't boost your blood sugar.
Yes. So she just said it doesn't spike your glycemic rate, your insulin levels, like normal sugar would.
Right.
Does it actually come in a sugar form?
Yes, it
So-
does.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes in a
I've
sugar
never
form.
seen that.
Yeah.
And this is one of
Much of
our
those
front
foods.
desk girls,
Yeah.
her favorite. So she cooks
Yeah.
with it. She makes
Oh, yeah. I make
certain
jams
things
with it.
Yeah. So you can make all kinds of things with monk fruit.
Yep.
But just to give you a reminder, we all have heard that sugar can be bad. We want to make sure that we limit how much we have per day. Okay, how much? Ideally, we're going to have 20 grams a day or less.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
and you check your drinks. 20 grams is like half of a can of soda. So most of us, on that sad diet, we might be getting 4 times that or more. And the American Heart Association, they broke it down into men and women. So women. All right.
Okay. We're back on.
Thanks for being patient. Sorry, our meeting ended for some reason, but we're back, and glad to see you guys online with us. So I'm just going to do a quick recap. I'm not sure if you heard about the sugars that we were talking about, but we want to limit the overall intake that we have every day, okay? And if we're doing fantastic, we're going to be having no more than 20 grams a day of added sugar in our foods, okay? And if we're talking about women and men, these are the recommendations from the American Heart Association. So for women, we want to have no more than 100 calories a day added sugar. Men, no more than 150 calories a day. That's what they recommend. Okay, and then if we go to the next slide in our handouts, we're going to touch on fats. The dreaded word, fats. It's okay though. It's okay. We have so much more understanding of fats than we did 20 years ago. So everybody heard, starting in the 1980s, that fats were the devil, right? Right? We've got to go low fat, no fat. Okay? But we actually know that fats are not harmful for us. Okay? A lot of the studies are actually disproving the link between saturated fats and cholesterol causing heart attacks. Okay, so cholesterol, of course, comes in part from eating animal meats, but our bodies make cholesterol naturally. Okay, we have to have cholesterol for nerve function and for cellular function. If we don't have enough cholesterol, we're gonna get sick. So it's not an option. And a lot of the times, in my opinion, I think our ranges need to be reassessed for normal cholesterol, because our research has just come such a long way with cholesterol and with fats. So fats are not the devil. And we can see on this chart here, we have a green, we have a yellow, and a red for the bad fats. So some of the good ones that are always go-tos is going to be olive oil, coconut, and that's going to be unrefined, of course, for all of these. If we're using almond, and we also have avocado, that's what I was looking for. So these are all great options that get 3 check marks. And of course, it's not quite as good, but if you start getting refined, that means that we're
Avocado.
the oils up before we actually get to eat them. So when we heat, what did we learn? We're going to be losing nutrients. So we don't want to refine anything if we can help it. And then over on the bad side, we're going to be having anything that is hydrogenated. You ever heard that word?
Yeah.
And partially hydrogenated. So what does hydrogenated means? It means it's a trans fat. The actual structure of the fat has been tweaked, and it's no longer healthy for us. They do it so that the shelf life is extended, but it actually doesn't leave our bodies when we eat it. So it kind of sticks to our cells, and it takes a long time for us to get rid of it. And anything that is sticking to our cells, it's gonna bog it down, it's gonna make it sluggish, and we're not gonna be as healthy for it. A lot of times we can see this on any snacks. You gotta look at peanut butter. Okay, regular peanut butter is always gonna have horrible fats in it. So just look over that list, and of course, a lot of protein bars gonna be just a no-go. Okay.
Yeah.
Just have a handful of almonds, handful of cashews. That's going to be much more natural. It's going to keep you full for a long time compared to having some type of protein bar in a lot of cases. Okay. So last thing I want to move on to is actually talking about the way that we eat. Okay, we talked a little bit about how we eat, what we're going to eat, and then I want to talk about the way that we eat, specifically our schedules.
Fast.
So we're going to be talking about, you said fasting, okay, and specifically intermittent fasting, okay?
This is like a 6-hour window.
I was saying I eat my food fast.
Yeah.
I know. Potatoes, now I can learn this.
So intermittent fasting, it means that we are not fasting for days at a time, but we're fasting for shorter periods of time, okay? Long fast can be very beneficial, but it's something that we have to monitor if we're going to be doing it, say, over 2 or 3 days, because people can have electrolyte problems. This is going to be safe for almost everybody, okay? But of course, you know, we have our nuances depending on what might be going on with you. So for intermittent fasting, you know, we've got different ones. If you look at the next slide, we've got the 8-hour, and the 8-hour one, it's simply gonna tell you to eat within an 8-hour window. I think it's one of the best ones. It's got some good research to it. But basically, instead of having 3 meals, you're typically just gonna be having 2 meals a day. And that's not gonna mean that you have to calorie restrict. That just means that we're gonna be scheduling our food differently.
Mhm.
And why do we even want to do intermittent fasting? The reason we actually want to participate in this and try it out if we can is it makes our bodies stronger, makes our bodies healthier. That's what the research is saying. Because fasting, it puts a biological stress on the body, but it's not a bad stress. I don't want you to think that as a negative thing. Because if we look back into our ancestors, okay, they didn't have supermarkets. They didn't know where their next meal was coming from. So when they weren't eating, it actually caused their brain function to work at a more efficient level, because it was either they're going to find food or they're going to starve. Okay?
So
And we're
will that
able to,
create that in us then, as we follow this?
yeah, so it's
Okay.
going to improve certain functions in our body.
Okay.
So if we look at the next slide, it's got an overview on all of the things that we've noticed that improve with intermittent fasting. It decreases insulin, okay? It's going to increase ketones. So ketones are actually going to shift the way our metabolism works. And ketones help the brain work at a more efficient level. It's also going to affect the liver. So when we fast, our body starts using a different type of fuel. So instead of having fat metabolized, it's going to metabolize glycogen, which is located in the liver. And then after that, it's going to, once that's depleted, it's going to be much easier for all the lipid or the fats to be used for fuel, okay, which can help keep us thin. So our body is going to use a different type of fuel when we're in this intermittent fast. And then of course it's going to help our digestive system. You can see that there. The heart, a lot of times you're going to have a reduced heart rate over time, reduced blood pressure like we talked about, and you're going to have more of a resistance to stress as it comes in for the heart. And then if we look at the next slide here, we can see that, one with the brain, it's going to facilitate the forming of new connections between our nerve cells in the brain. So it's called neurogenesis. So that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Keeps us from getting old in the brain. So neurogenesis, we've got little nerve cells here, right? They've got all these fibers that are trying to reach out to one another, right? And we've got a network just like this. And they're all trying to reach out. And fasting actually facilitates these processes here where they're connecting. So it makes them easier to connect. That makes us think faster, more efficiently, and we can solve problems, be healthier that way. Because of that stress we put on our bodies. And then if you look down at the slide that it says usual diet and intermittent fasting, we can actually see the neurons under an electron microscope, and it's a more healthy neuron right there on the right side. And people actually use fasting all the way back in Roman times. This is actually one of the prescriptions for people who have epilepsy. They used to shut people in a room. They thought it was demons. They'd come back later. They were feeling much better after they shut them in a room. That was because they were actually fasting and their body's starting to make ketones, which turns down the electrical activity in the brain of an epileptic person.
Oh, wow.
So this has been used for time and time again, but it's beneficial for people without this condition either, and we're seeing that. And the last thing that I just want to touch on is, we've got a lot of information that we have at our fingertips these days, but we don't always know what the source is or who to trust, okay? And one of the reasons why that is just because of where our research comes from these days. I found an interesting fact that where a lot of the nutrition funding comes from. This is why I wanted to talk to you about this today, because the Harvard Department of Nutrition, pretty respectable, right? Okay. For the years of 1942 to 1986, I'm going to read you some of the donors, sponsors of the research. We've got McDonald's. We've got the National Biscuit Company. We've got the National Dairy. We've got Pillsbury. We've got General Mills, who makes cereal. Okay, on and on and on. Campbell's Soup, right? Are these the pillars of health? Are they making healthy foods? Not necessarily. So I hope you learned something valuable today, okay? And I'm so glad each and every one of you came and you got some clarity on some questions that you had about body fueling, and it really can lead to a better, awesome life. So thanks a lot.